The first picture I took of my new apartment was the one that broke me. It was just a quick, celebratory shot on my phone. Empty living room, dusty afternoon light streaming through the bay window, a couple of sealed boxes in the corner. I was sending it to my sister to show her I'd finally moved in. But when I looked at the photo, my thumb hovering over the send button, a cold knot formed in my stomach. In the deepest corner of the room, half swallowed by shadow, something was wrong. The wallpaper, a faded floral pattern, seemed to bulge unnaturally, distorting in a way that defied the flat perspective of the photo. It looked smeared, like a wet painting. I blinked, looking from my phone screen to the actual corner of the room. The wallpaper was perfectly flat, perfectly normal. I took another photo. Same result. A sickening digital warp in that one specific spot. I dismissed it as a glitch, a weird camera flare, and sent the first photo anyway. "Looks great," my sister texted back. I tried to forget about it. The next few days were a blur of unpacking and settling in. The building was old, one of those pre-war walk-ups, with thick walls and floors that groaned with history. My apartment, number 4B, was at the end of the hall. It was quiet, too quiet. The only sound was the faint, rhythmic scratching. It started on the second night, a soft, dry skittering sound from inside the wall in the corner, the same corner from the photograph. Rats, I told myself. Old building, old problems. I banged my fist against the plaster. The scratching would stop, only to resume an hour later, always faint, always methodical. Scritch, scrape, scritch. A week in, I bought a cheap Polaroid camera from a thrift store. I've always loved the tangible nature of instant film, the way it captures a moment you can hold. I took a picture of my new bookshelf, proud of how I'd arranged the books. When the image developed, my breath caught in my throat. The bookshelf looked fine, but there, in the background, was the corner. The smear on the wall was still there, but it was different now. It was darker, more defined. It almost looked like a silhouette. A tall, impossibly thin silhouette, slightly hunched. My heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't a phone glitch. The scratching grew bolder. Sometimes, it sounded less like rats and more like fingernails dragging slowly down a wooden board. I started sleeping with the lights on. During the day, I'd inspect the wall, running my hands over the floral print paper, pressing my ear against it. I heard nothing. It was only in the silence of the night that the sounds returned. My neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Gable from number 4A, stopped me in the hall one afternoon. Her eyes, clouded with age, seemed to fixate on something just over my shoulder. "You're the new tenant in 4B, she said, her voice a dry whisper. "It's been empty a long time." "Just moved in," I said, forcing a smile. "Still getting used to the building's character." Her gaze sharpened. "You hear it, don't you?" The stillness. I must have looked confused because she shook her head, a grim tightness in her lips. "Be careful with pictures," she rasped before shuffling away down the hall. "It doesn't like to be seen, but it loves to be still." Her words echoed in my mind, nonsensical and terrifying. It loves to be still. That night, I set up the Polaroid camera on a tripod, aimed it at the corner, and set the self-timer. I stood on the other side of the room, my back pressed against the far wall, and waited for the flash. The camera whirred, spitting out the developing photo. I snatched it, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. As the grey film slowly resolved into an image, a low moan escaped my lips. The silhouette was there, clearer than ever. It was a man, or something shaped like one. It was tall and gaunt, its limbs bent at unnatural angles. But that wasn't the worst part. The figure was no longer just a smear against the wall. It was standing in the middle of the room. It was posed, mimicking my own stance from across the room, but its head was cocked at a broken angle, and where its face should have been, there was only a smooth, featureless void. And the scratching started, not from inside the wall this time. It was coming from the corner. Loud, frantic, splintering wood and tearing paper. I didn't sleep. I sat on my sofa, staring at the Polaroid, then at the corner, then back again. The photo was a lie. The room was empty. But the sound was real. The terror was real. I had to know. I had to see its face. Just before dawn, when the sky was a bruised purple, I did the last thing I should have ever done. I turned the Polaroid camera around. I sat on the floor, my expression a mask of sleepless dread, and took a selfie. The flash was blinding. The camera spat the photo onto the floor. With a trembling hand, I picked it up. The image swam into focus. There I was, pale and terrified, and standing right behind me, a blackened skeletal hand resting on my shoulder, was the figure. It was leaning over me, its featureless head tilted as if studying me, except its face wasn't featureless anymore. In the stark light of the flash, the Polaroid had captured it. It was my face, distorted into a silent, screaming grin that stretched impossibly wide. The scratching stopped. I'm looking at the photo now. It's been an hour. The sun is up, but my apartment is still dark. The thing behind me in the picture isn't there when I look over my shoulder. I know it isn't, but I can feel a cold weight on my shoulder where its hand was. I can feel a faint, cool breath on the back of my neck. He's very, very still, and he's waiting for me to be still, too.